Hi everyone, and thanks for joining TV as a Performance channel and Bring Ruckus and Tatari. So this event is being recorded. I'll send an email with the link once it's ready. Let's engage in the chat if you're feeling like it, ask a follow-up question. I'll be there to answer. And with that, the mic to you, Anish.
Yeah, hi, I'm one of the co-hosts for today. My background was actually helping to run growth for different companies, both full-time and as a consultant. Spent 11 years in San Francisco, moved to New York about 3 years ago. More recently, I've built an executive recruiting firm. We specialize in growth hires for fast-growing companies, and put more simply, we sort of hire everyone's head of growth. And that's us. And now we're a team of 9.
Awesome. Thank you, Anish. Hey guys, my name is Skylar Logston. I'm one of the co-hosts for today as well. From a small town in Southern California called Ojai, California. It's like near Santa Barbara, maybe an hour and a half outside of LA. Studied entrepreneurship in Philadelphia. I met our founder and CEO, Philippe Engelbrecht, at an event that he was speaking at in college, and I've been with him ever since. I was the first employee at Tatari 5 years ago. I've had a few different roles. I was the head of sales, and I did media buying for a couple of years. And I'm back as the head of sales as of about 2 years ago. I love my job. I get to meet some awesome people every single day, like many of them that are on this call today. And thank you all for joining. I'm super excited for the webinar.
Junior, want to introduce yourself?
Yes, sorry, I'm seeing like a little bit of a delay. Hi guys, my name is Junior. I'm a New York native. My background is mainly in programmatic across multiple channels outside of paid social and paid search, although I have experience in those channels as well. I joined Resident almost about 3 years ago. Since then, I kind of been heading their marketing mix diversification. Right now, I focus primarily on TV, programmatic YouTube, and new channels. A little bit about me, just my focus when it comes to marketing is just transparent measurement of everything and just testing everything. That's kind of been my philosophy of how I work and how I look at partnerships with different vendors, different platforms, etc. So I look forward to hearing from the rest of the team here.
That'd be me. I'm Dan. I'm based in San Francisco. I head up marketing for Lemonaid Health. I am a recent join to Lemonaid Health. I joined back in June. And since then, starting in July, we've launched TV, which is part of our focus on diversifying our marketing channels. Historically, Lemonaid has grown from organic as well as Google paid ads, Facebook paid ads. So TV has been a really nice success story for us thus far, and really excited to continue turning something that's historically been harder to track and measure performance and make it something that is trackable and we can prove the performance for. So excited to chat about that today.
Hi everyone, my name is Aaron Polander. I am Vice President of Marketing at GovX. We are an online-only retailer, and we cater exclusively to those who have previously served or currently serve in the military, law enforcement, firefighting, other first responder and government agency type communities. It's free to join our site, but you have to verify that you did or do one of those jobs. And then once you have access to the site, we work directly with 400 plus brands, pro sports teams, universities, any brand that wants to offer a military or a first responder discount that typically comes through govx.com. I've been with the company for 6 years. TV is a new addition for us, much like Dan just said. We launched in May, and these last 4 months have been incredible for us. So happy to share some of those learnings today.
Awesome, cool. So the first question is, how do you measure TV's effectiveness? Aaron, why don't you kick it off for us and answer that first one for us?
Sure. So like I was just saying, we are going after a pretty targeted subset of overall TV viewers. But and our goal with TV has been very top of the funnel. How do we get more people to the site to sign up and join govx.com? And for us, the KPIs are how many people are we getting and how much does it cost us to get somebody to sign up? And those are really the core of what we're measuring. That second part we look at in a few different ways. With Tatari, part of the reason we've been so happy with this partnership to date is that you actually have a view into when a commercial ran, did somebody come to the site after seeing that commercial, what did it cost to get them to the site, and ultimately how much did it cost for them to join the site. So we have that CPA view from TV that before Tatari, we really just didn't think that was going to be all that possible. Of course, we also factor in other angles of how we are measuring overall new membership success. So while we rely on the Tatari dashboard and data extensively, we're looking also at just what's the overall impact to the sheer volume of people that have joined the site in a given day, week, month. What is our CPA looking like now that before and after TV blended across all channel expenses? And those are really the key things we're looking at. On top of, during these last 4 months that we've been with Tatari, how fast are those new members then actually becoming first-time customers with us? And what's been great with Tatari is that not only has the sheer scale of our new member acquisition gone up with Tatari's help, those members we're targeting the right folks, because not only are they signing up, but they're also purchasing with us faster than previous cohorts did. So that's been the supporting kind of justification for our spend, and given us the confidence to really kind of push things moving forward.
Awesome, thanks, Aaron. Dan, I'm curious. You have much different product than Aaron does. I'd love to hear your answer for the same question as well, if you can.
Sure, different product, but pretty similar in terms of how I would probably measure the effectiveness. I kind of view it in a phased approach. The three phases at a high level are cost per visit, cost per acquisition, and then ROI. And I think as you get more data, you can get more precise down that funnel. So out of the gate, we set a cost per visit goal based on some historical data we had, some averages for visitors that we have. And then my preference, which is also how Tatari does it, is to do a bottoms up incremental approach. So we've got our baseline of visitors, and we measure when TV spots air, and we can identify the lift in visitor as a result of that particular spot. And we can do it really granularly, and I call that the bottoms up approach. We'll apply a drag factor on top of that because we know that industry best practices are that there's going to be some other halo effect beyond the X number of minute window after the spot airs. But beyond that, this is still within the cost per visit view. I like to validate what we're seeing from the bottoms up approach. And the two simple ways that we have right now are a top down approach, which just says for this week or this month, did we end up with more visits than what we had projected? And we do a pretty detailed job on projections. And we try to initiate TV when we have minimal variables going on with other marketing tests that aren't trackable. So at the end of the month, they should be able to say, hey, I saw this much more in terms of visitor volume, and validate or corroborate what I'm seeing from the bottoms up approach. And then the second sort of validation mechanism that we have is we have an on-site survey that just says, how did you hear about us? And based on the percentage of people that said TV, we can extrapolate how many of our visitors probably were driven by TV. And I'll add a little caveat on that. Fortunately, several months before I joined, they had launched the site survey and included TV as an option there. So there was a pre-existing baseline of people who said that they heard about us from TV, even though there was no TV. That gives me sort of the delta that I can actually rely on. So I was pretty thankful that they had done that. fortunately, both mechanisms validated very closely the numbers that we were seeing from the Tatari dashboard.
Just out of curiosity, of
yeah.
the people who kind of, I guess, incorrectly thought they came to you from TV, like, what were those sort of numbers or that people put in there as, yeah, I saw you guys on TV before you even had TV ads running?
Very small.
Okay.
I think I was seeing 0.3%, less than 0.5%. The other little caveat with the survey thing is changing the order routinely on like where that question shows up, because there can be bias depending on where it sits in the order of questions. Once you have volume on the visitor side, I think you will generate enough volume to start doing the same sort of incrementality approaches for conversions as well. And then at some point in the future, I actually haven't done it yet with TV, but I want to get to a place where we can pretty precisely identify the ROI of the spend that we're doing. And I think that's part of the phased approach, and we'll get there as we collect more data.
Dan, I'm curious, was that 0.3 in line with what you guys see when you throw other channels in there as well that you're not on? Or was TV
Good question.
higher?
I didn't validate it. I didn't throw any other fake ones in there yet.
Got it. No worries. Cool. Awesome. Great. So we can move on to the next one. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Aaron. Cool. Junior, coming your way. How are you measuring TV CPAs?
Yes, this is an interesting one. I mean, we have several approaches for this in particularly. One of them is essentially taking the log level files and trying to essentially recreate path to conversions for existing order IDs when we know those spots air, and then look at the immediate response in that 5-minute window to try to isolate the users that we believe are attributed to TV. And that's more of a, I would say, probabilistic approach, because some of the data is really not deterministic. The other approach is leveraging third-party vendors that will have their own kind of baseline plus lift approach, and then kind of compare it to Tatari's baseline plus lift on the Tatari conversion pixel to try to kind of triangulate their the user. And then the last one, which I think is the most effective, is leveraging smart TV data. So one of the things that really helped in the decision making of choosing Tatari was the fact that once we reached enough scale, we were able to essentially get back some sort of session IDs. And if you look at the smart TV market or ecosystem out there, right, not all consumers in the United States have a smart TV, right? But if you impress enough of them that do, you can, to some degree of certainty, pinpoint the households that have been exposed to those TV ads, and essentially then take and those session IDs of those users at the household level that you've identified, that then picked up the phone and went to your site within that immediate window and attributed back to that spot. And then from there, you have your sample size that you're calculating your CPA, and then from there you can extrapolate based on the rest of the US population. So that's been kind of the most effective approach, and one that I feel like this is where TV eventually is going to move when it comes to like the future of TV, but more to come on that later.
Yeah, when you mentioned that you look for basically a 5-minute spike from an ad to an action or activity on your website. So is that to infer that if someone sees one of the TV spots, I guess a very large percentage would just have their phone nearby or their laptop nearby, and you're kind of running off of that, like very immediate, once they see an ad within 5 minutes, they're going to take an action?
Correct. I mean, there's a few variables that play into it. Is the ad compelling enough? Is there an offer that is compelling enough to get the consumer to say, hey, that looks interesting, let me quickly Google it and check it out. It's kind of like the potato effect. Now you're sitting on the couch, you see an ad and like, whatever, if it's not good enough, or, oh, wait, let me bookmark this, or let me just put it in my Google search, think about that later. So the 5-minute window is interesting because Tatari was actually one of the first companies, and we've done TV several times already, that actually uses a 5, which is very, very conservative. Other agencies or vendors out there will use a 10 to 15 minute window, which in my opinion, depending on your product, is very generous windows, and you can easily skew results that way and have very misleading optimization levers to pull after that. So for us, the 5 minute window, coupled with our level of spend across our marketing channels, coupled with the way that we're looking and the KPI that we're measuring makes sense, is very conservative considering the ratio of TV spend to our overall marketing spend. Mm-hmm. So that's how I like to think about this. It's like you need to build statistical significance in order for this to make sense. And if you, for example, are spending 2% of your overall marketing TV spend on TV, then you should probably be a little bit more generous on that window, and also depend on your product. But if you're not spending too much on TV, it's a significant buy, then maybe kind of shrink that window a little bit. But the 5 minute window with Tatari has been the most conservative and the one that I feel works for us when we are triangulating all of our points. And also we kind of have meetings with Tatari data science team and our data science team. And our challenge to our data team was, if you can recreate Tatari baseline plus lift to some degree of discrepancy, and we feel comfortable, then we'll feel comfortable in trusting Tatari's number. And we were able to do that to some degree of discrepancy. And now we feel very strongly that Tatari has the most conservative approach out there, because we've recreated their baseline plus lift to some degree of discrepancy. And that's just been kind of like a North Star.
That's great. And obviously it's meant to create a lot more accuracy when you're involving the data science teams. Sometimes when the marketer is going to the data science teams, it's sort of like the marketer wants this to work, and they're sort of pushing, like, can you just make the numbers say what I want it to say, please? Because I want to sell this internally. I want to get an extra $500K of budget. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like there was any of that little push with them, or they were like, no, very, very objectively, like, this is kind of working, and we don't have any pushback on this?
Yeah, no. So this was more of it actually working. We have, at our company, we are a data company at our core. We are a performance marketing agency at our core, where we like to think that we could scale up pretty much any brand. And that's kind of like our approach is, right? We have this umbrella of resident, and we're going about it very scientifically when we're thinking about the next brand that we're going to pick to scale up. The same approach is with any marketing channel, right? I personally don't care to try to make the numbers work, because at the end of the day, that will be my head on the chopping block. So I don't want that. So when it comes to the data science team, the relationship that we have is just strictly data focused. My ask of them is, hey, look, this number that this vendor is giving us seems too good to be true. Mm-hmm. If you can come up with a model that is close to this without knowing how they're doing this, I feel very confident in that number. If you come up with a model that we've tested before, and we've tested across similar view-based channels, and mm-hmm. that number is largely discrepant, then we know that there's over attributing on the vendor side. And then we can go back and forth and understand why they're over attributing, right? And this is where we can then have a two-way conversation and say, how can we help you see your numbers the way we're seeing our numbers? Because if you can't look at your numbers in the way that we're looking at our numbers, then this will never work, because you're optimizing towards something that's completely different.
Yeah, they're optimizing towards you just spending more and not really giving a shit about anything else. Yeah, exactly. No, that definitely makes sense. Does anyone have, it seems like a lot of the attribution that we sort of heard about has been kind of focused on, seeing spikes on the websites based on certain time and so forth, the spot and spike model. Has anyone seen success with like something else, that like unique landing pages? Or have you learned that if you do like residenthome.com/save spring, nobody actually uses those unique landing pages? Or like use a coupon code TV20 or something like that, nobody actually uses those coupon codes. Do those work, or it's just like no one's really going to do that?
For me, we've tested it in the past, and honestly, I think the hardest part is coming up with something that is short and memorable, that makes sense, that it will stick in people's head. And because I don't rely on that too much, I think numbers people will forget. URLs is hard. There's too many characters there. So for me, it's just making the ad experience relatable to some degree that I feel like someone will have an emotional connection to that ad and offering something that is worth picking up the phone. So like a lot of our TV ads, for example, will focus on happiness and health, especially right now during this period of time, or mental health, sleep problems and sleep apnea and all these different things are of concern, right? That is how we're trying to connect with a consumer, is focusing on the message of sleep, health, and happiness. Like if you don't have a good night's sleep, you're in turn are going to have a bad day. You're going to have, you're not going to be operating at 100% capacity, period. So relevance and the ability to relate to a customer is very important with TV ads, in my opinion, just because you don't have a CTA, you don't have other elements that you can kind of pull and use. So you really have to connect emotionally. So that's what seems to be working.
Makes a lot of sense. I think, Aaron, you had something to add in there.
I was going to say a couple things, and I saw there was a chat question that kind of related to the CPA, and I think Junior just covered most of what I would have responded in an answer. But so to go back to the most recent question, we have not tried vanity URLs or coupon codes. I mean, we're 4 months in. We're running with our first batch of creative that we've tested through, and that was not a priority. We want to get the brand clearly out there without much distraction around the message itself. So not something we've tested yet. On the CPA kind of question that was in chat, and it's a lot what Junior just said. I mean, we don't have attribution perfected by any means. We are very happy with what we've seen from the Tatari attribution compared to what we can observe internally. If we look at just the analytics data, the TV has impacted our direct channel. Obviously, that's not where it's where it has to come through for us. But we're able to triangulate around Tatari data, specific cohorts of people that are starting a registration with us or completing a registration with us on a given day, and tracking those cohorts across the board through the life of their membership with us and their purchasing behavior with us. So we have pretty detailed metrics around specific cohorts for how they're behaving once they start our funnel. But you have to kind of use a few various sources to triangulate on exactly what portion should be assigned to TV outside of what Tatari is already presenting to us in their, what I think is a great dashboard.
Cool. Any insight into what some of those other sources might be, or?
For us?
Yeah.
Sources in terms of analytics platforms?
Yeah, or anything else you use just on top of kind of measuring on the Tatari.
Yeah, so I mean, what I mentioned, my first response, I mean, TV has lifted the tide for us dramatically. It's not like an incremental, it's not just a small, barely noticeable bump. We can pretty clearly identify when TV happened and what impact that had from a before and after standpoint. And like I said, watching those cohorts of new members as they progress through the weeks and months, where I'm not getting into, let's say I signed up 1,000 new people. I'm not saying, all right, these 5 individuals are the ones we got from TV. Let me track them through the purchasing funnel. But I know that the lift that happened for that cohort of people that signed up on the same day is dramatically better than it was before TV. And so you have to make some assumptions around the incrementality that TV is providing, but we feel confident in how we're looking at that right now.
Yeah, I love that. That was actually one of the most clear ways I've heard of incrementality in TV. That makes a lot of sense. That just since you've integrated TV, the whole bunch has kind of gotten better performance from an LTV standpoint. So that's really great, especially since you have everyone can't use your product, right? You have to specifically be within a certain bucket of people. So the fact that a broader kind of channel like TV still works for you, even though you can't target specifically to just first responders.
Yeah, I give Tatari credit for a lot of that because they've helped guide the network and program mix as we've tested through these first 4 months. So we've clearly identified the right places to reach our audience. in a way that we maybe didn't think was possible on TV prior to this.
Cool. Dan, did you have any thoughts on that, or?
No, those were actually really good points. The cohort analysis, I think, Skylar, I don't want to put words in Tatari's mouth, but I think there's a probabilistic cohort analysis for conversion tracking. It's exactly like Aaron described, where you have a cohort, you don't know which, let's say, half was driven by TV and which half would have been a visitor anyway, but you could track that cohort relative to other cohorts, and you can track them over time. What we're finding is we're seeing slight improvements in conversion rate and LTV for the cohorts that are heavily driven by TV. And we think it's because relative to other ways we get organic or brand traffic, the TV brand traffic comes with a little bit more education. Even a 15-second or a 30-second spot from TV that drove a customer, they come more educated about our product and have something in mind potentially when they're arriving. So rather than a looky-loo who clicked on us via an organic ad, or an organic placement, I should say, or ended up on our blog, we end up with higher converting organic traffic when we believe they were heavily driven by TV.
And possibly because of like, someone may have seen organic plus they've seen some TV, and that's kind of like that high consideration, kind of double touch.
Yeah. My assumption for the time being, again, we're pretty new in this particular campaign, but my assumption is the type of ads that we're running with now are educational. This is how it works. This is what will happen when you get to our site, and what will happen through the course of your medical visit with us. And like I said, even in 15 seconds, I think we're generating a much higher level of education for the average visitor versus somebody typing into Google, help with birth control or UTIs or something like that, and clicking on a few different things and not totally being sure what Lemonaid Health provides.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I'm wondering whether the psychology also of someone just trusting someone who has a TV ad plays into it as well. Just because, like, well, if this company can afford TV ads, they're not gonna go away tomorrow. I wonder where that even plays in that somehow.
I believe it does, but I don't know how to measure that.
That's a pretty tough one. Jump to the next one, Grace.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you. Dan, coming right back at you. So how should brands think about the mix between linear and OTT, both when starting out on TV and as they scale?
I view them as completely independent channels to be operated independently. And I think the reason is they perform differently. They have different tracking capabilities. The device types that people are on are often different. Even the locations where they are could be different. If a new brand is trying to figure out the mix, I think if they had an unlimited spend at a particular ROI, then max spend on both until you have diminishing returns below your ROI target. If you have fixed budget and you're just trying to maximize your ROI, then I would take the top performing segments of each until you spend your budget. So I think it depends, but I would certainly treat them differently and not lump them together.
Awesome. Aaron or Junior, would either of you like to add to that?
Yeah, so like I said, we're 4 months in. We are just now starting on streaming. So we've been linear only until the last few weeks, and but based on everything we know about it and have been educated on by Tatari, it's a lot of what Dan just said. Like we believe that as we increase our budget and we move more towards streaming, that we'll be reaching an incremental group of people, that there's not a lot of crossover between the two. So a lot of what we'll be starting with is tackling streaming services that were winners for us on linear. And that'll be kind of the next approach.
To that point, so do you have everything under the same umbrella most companies do? What is the benefits for you of not going Hulu direct or having someone else do your streaming and having it all under one umbrella? Why do you like having it that way?
Well, we trust Atari. That's one, I guess, key factor is that we believe in the relationship so far. and wasn't a consideration to try to do things on our own for part of it and not for others part of it. So that hasn't really been something I've considered, to be honest.
Cool. Junior, would you like to add anything?
Sorry, I was thinking about the question because it's one that comes up a lot for me in just discussions. Personally, I think that as brands are looking to start out in TV or scale TV, if they've already been spending for some time, they should really think about OTT, and I would add to that also connected TV or CTV. I think it's also very important to understand the difference between OTT and CTV, because that's where the lines can get a little bit blurry depending on who you're working, the partners, and that kind of where it goes back to what Aaron said. It's about trust and trusting a partner that understands the difference, because then you can end up with a partner that promises you one thing but actually delivers on another. And it's easy to say to someone, oh yeah, I'm giving you incremental reach on OTT and CTV, but if their definitions don't match yours, you could potentially just be serving on full episode players on desktop, mobile, and tablet, which are things that you can normally access with any wildly known DSP. So for me, I think it's just the fact that TV is just going to continue to evolve over time. TV is not going anywhere, as most people are saying, talking about the cord cutters, the cord nevers, etc. I think the TV audience is still there and still watching TV. It's just the format and the medium and as to how they're watching TV. The same person that on TV is watching CNN or Fox News could be watching the same thing on their smart TV through the Hulu app, through the Roku app, etc. It's still the same audience, still watching it on TV. It's just understanding that different, understanding how to approach it. For me, I think it's just really understanding the actual reach between the two. And it does help to have it all in-house, but with the limitations and measurements on OTT and CTV, it's good to have a partner that will give you the transparency that you need to fully measure that properly. Because I would say the biggest companies out there that talk about this is The Trade Desk, and they have Hulu, Roku, and they focus very heavily on this. Hulu on one side is very protective of their data. They won't really give you the meat that you need to build an attribution for connected TV. They'll gladly do it for you, but again, it's like Google grading their own homework. If you go to Roku on the other side, they have one of the largest streaming platforms out there. And in their case, they have something very unique to them, is that they also act as an ad content recognition platform on top of TVs, on top of their own smart TVs that they have, so they can see a lot more. That's their bread and butter. But again, you won't get that data yourself, and you really have to trust that they're doing their due diligence in the measurement. So an independent partner like Tatari or other players that are out there, like a Mad Hive, or I forgot what the other company is, but they are more nimble, more agile. They are very data driven and are trying to win the race, versus some of these companies, they're going for reach. They're going for, we have the brand name, and because of that, we can give you the scale you want, but that doesn't always translate to performance. So again, it's just having the data to build the attribution and understanding that when looking at linear with connected TV and OTT together.
And I'll be perfectly honest, I've actually never done a TV buy before. So, for someone like me, and I'm not even super educated on it, so I don't know why I'm co-hosting this event, but can you explain the different types of TV? You guys are talking about linear, OTT, CTV. There might be some folks like me who've never done a buy on this stuff and are kind of not the most educated on it. So can you break down, anyone, Skylar, anyone, break down the different types?
I'll take a stab at it.
Awesome.
So for me, there's your traditional linear TV. These are ads that are running on dish cable networks, or that you can go buy directly from the networks, like a Fox News, CNN, etc. And these are running on a set schedule. There's your local and national spots. And then when you start getting into what The Trade does, or even Google starting to call now as advanced TV, which is essentially the umbrella, I think, term, hopefully stays that way. Then under that, you would have your connected TV, your OTT, and then your FEP. The acronym is connected TV, over the top, handful episode player.
Hola
Okay.
Paula, ¿cómo estás? Tu cámara ya está avanzada, el mueble lo tenemos acá.
Wow, that was interesting. I do speak Spanish, but that was interesting. But yeah, and then under connected TV is just basically your smart TVs, right? It's any television that is natively connected to the internet, right? Where you don't have to add anything to it. OTT, on the other hand, that would be taking television and adding something to it to connect it to the internet, like a gaming console, Apple TV, Fire Stick, a Roku device, etc. Now, your FEPs on the other side are essentially players that these networks own. Like if you look at the HBO app or HBO Max or whatever name they have nowadays, if you go to the website, if you go to the cbswebsite.com where you can actually watch full episodes on their site, those essentially are considered full episode players, where you're still watching television content in a streaming manner, but you're still able to get ads that are non-skippable, similar to TV. And I think that would be it.
You nailed that, Junior. Wow. Good job.
A lot of experimenting.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone who's never done TV before, let us know in the chat whether you got all that. Nice. Can we jump into the next one, Grace?
Awesome. Aaron, come to you. What is the minimum spend needed to see if TV as a channel will be successful for your company?
It seems like one you should answer, Skylar, but for us, I mean, so one, there's the actual creative portion. So Tatari does not do the creative. They give you guidance on the creative. So we partnered with another company to actually develop the commercials. So there was that expense. And then the actual buy itself, we started out, I don't know how specific I want to get, but we started out with low six figures in a month, I would say. And we've roughly doubled that as the months have gone on. But I should say, I don't know if that answers the question of what the minimum is required. Skylar might be able to speak better to what the Tatari viewpoint is on that.
Yeah.
But we spent at basically what we thought was the minimum to get the data that we needed early on. And the success that came from that gave us the confidence to ramp.
Yep. Thanks, Aaron. So yeah, we think that the worst TV pilots are ones that you don't know whether you should throttle or run for the hills. As much as that would hurt us and we'd be sad that you need to go back to Facebook and Google, that is a win for your brand if you test TV and you spent enough to be able to make that call. So we have some minimum set, like if you want to test streaming, we typically say 50K, spent over a couple weeks, solid. By the end of that 50K, you will know whether you should throttle or turn off. With cable, low six figures, 100K, 150K, we think that's enough spent over 4 weeks. Ideally, you can put cable and streaming against each other. Let's see if Hulu works against Bravo and E and ESPN. We don't care. It's unbiased universal measurement. If Hulu doesn't work or Roku doesn't work, we drop it. We spend more on ESPN that did work. Some brands will start with just streaming first, kind of dip their toes in, smaller minimum, just fire up and get on the big screen. Other brands will say, no, I want that massive reach that linear has. I want to signal that big prestige when someone sees me on CNN. So maybe they'll start with cable first, and then they'll layer in streaming when budgets allow.
And when you say streaming, you can start a little smaller. What can you do with streaming? Like if someone's got like a series, like a seed stage startup, or something like that, like what could they think about doing?
Yeah, so you could test maybe 4 to 6 different platforms with that 40 to 50K.
Nice. Okay. Makes sense.
I think another point to add to the TV spend is to always think about your overall marketing mix. If you spend enough money, and I think I talked about this earlier, if you spend a significant amount of money per day or per month, or whatever it is, you want to make sure that your TV can actually make a dent on your baseline. When you're looking at the baseline at a 5-minute mark, it's easy to look at the lift, but it also depends on how much activity, how many visitors you have coming into your site. So I think that's something that is very important to take into consideration when thinking about TV budgets, so that you don't want to just throw money at TV and then feel like you didn't learn anything from it.
Makes a lot of sense.
Awesome. Grace, we can go to the next one. Thank you. Dan, coming your way. How long does this channel take to perform?
I would say it depends on your baseline volatility. I really like Junior's last point, how many variables you have and how volatile that baseline is before you can get a stat sig result. But my general answer is faster than you think. I think for me, what was important launching TV was identifying that you don't have to achieve success to be able to determine if you have found a successful channel. I think probably most marketers here have encountered campaigns that they had no trouble improving the performance by 50% within a matter of weeks or months, just through optimization. In our case, we saw our cost per visit improve 40% from month 1 to month 2, just through optimization of creative and network rotation. So I would say we, after 2 weeks, knew that it was going to be a performer. And after 4 weeks, we were really, really close to our performance metric. And now we're into our 3rd month and we're beating our cost per visit metric.
Awesome. Aaron, maybe you'd want to share your story.
I have a question actually in there. You mentioned creative rotation. How do you want to think about that? You know, and like how many creatives do you need at any given time? Like, is there a kind of system that you have of, okay, we're having this money budget. This is roughly our budget. Therefore, we need X amount of, like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, so I'm a firm believer that you should always be testing something that's going to drive a learning. Early on, I am a proponent of doing step function change creatives and testing them against each other. And what I mean by that is very distinct or discrete things. So our first test was a live action version versus an animated version. They were very different, and we got a stat sig performance result very quickly as a result of that. After that, we're going to probably test different messages with very different communication styles. We might stick with live action since we've got our learning in that case, and try very distinct different versions of live action. And hopefully every time you're doing this, you're working on getting a real learning that you can then iterate upon. Down the road, I think we'll start doing much more fine-tuned iterations. We'll probably be testing different end cards on the same creative. But early on, I sort of wanted to get like big chunk learnings because we saw a 40% difference just from our creative. And if we had just gone with animation, we might have said, oh, I'm not sure if this channel works. So we lean on Tatari to give us a little bit of guidance on what sort of forms of creative we should be testing, what elements within the creative matter, and end up testing a few different versions. We also, I don't believe in spending a ton on production budget because you're trying to prove the channel, not prove the production value first, for me.
That's interesting. Makes a lot of sense. So, and not necessarily that a more expensive commercial will perform better. Also, maybe falls into that. But you do mention the importance of creative rotations. You probably do need to spend at least on volume of creatives, of different types of variations of creatives, right?
Could you repeat that? Sorry, it cut out for me.
Oh, no problem. Like you mentioned, not necessarily testing like the production value, right? It's not how much you spend on an ad, but you do mention having lots of different experimental options within the creative, right? So that is something maybe you think someone should spend on instead of like one blowout beautiful ad. Instead spend on like, okay, let's get 15 different ads.
Yeah, in my opinion, if you don't already have a learning that like the one super high value production, expensive spot is for some reason the thing that you have to do, then I would definitely put money in having multiple versions that give you a learning in distinct areas.
Cool. And just to get an idea, like, and anyone can answer that, like how many like TV ad variations have you built, in like a 6-month period or 1 month? Because I'm trying to get an idea of like, okay, you're saying multiple, but does that mean 5 or does that mean like 25?
I'll tell you, we started with 2.
Nice.
To make it simple, and 2 very different ones, and within 4 weeks we completely phased out one version of it, and now we're back in production for a new slate of 2 more or 3 more.
Cool. So roughly 5 overall.
Yeah.
We started with 3 also distinct, not as distinct as animated and live action, but 3 different storyboards for live action. And we also had those in 15 and 30-second formats, and also the various formats needed not just for broadcast TV, but for use on social media and YouTube, etc. One of the 3 completely eliminated fairly early on. So we're currently running with 2 that are fairly neck and neck. So we continue to test on those. And one interesting thing for us, which Tatari gave us that this would be kind of their expectation, was that the shorter versions for us have outperformed the longer 30-second versions. So a lot of what we run are 15-second versions of the 2 winning creatives.
Makes sense.
And 15 seconds is cheaper. So it's more effective and cheaper.
That's what I was going to ask next. Is it like almost half the cost, or?
It is half the cost. In streaming, they charge the same 15s and 30s. But in the world of cable, yeah, half the cost for that 15-second spot.
Nice. All right. That's actually a big tip if anyone can take away. Don't pay that extra amount for a 30-second spot. Stick to the 15s.
Test it though. That would be our advice. Sometimes that 30 can outperform the 15. So, put them against each other and let the data tell you which one is performing. We do see that 30s can convert better. So it's worth testing it.
All right. Well, then my conclusion was off. Nice.
Just if I can answer the question that's on the slide too, similar to what Dan said, but for us, I mean, literally day 1, the notice, the change in scale for us in terms of number of people starting the registration funnel and signing up to join our site, it was not a question. In terms of performance and like getting to the exact KPIs we want, we spent that first month really optimizing and finding the best pockets, so that once we went into month 2, we were much better. We were in a better position to succeed and hit the KPIs we wanted.
That makes a lot of sense. One last question. So is the kind of user journey from watching a TV ad then that they more likely than not are looking you up on their mobile phone, so therefore it boosts up mobile traffic? Or am I incorrect about that it's not terribly different from other forms of acquisition where like, do you see a bump in mobile traffic more so than general, like, desktop?
I would say that during these interesting times that we are now, there has been an increase in also desktop traffic, but majority of it is mobile for us.
Yeah, mobile here too.
Same.
Cool. Great. Jump on the next one, Grace.
Awesome. Cool. So how can I reduce the risk of wasting money on TV? I'll leave that up to anyone to answer, whoever wants to take it.
Sorry, go ahead, Aaron.
Not to be the Tatari cheerleader, but I mean, I think part of it is partnering with somebody that you trust and believe in what they're, at least in our case, educating us on and guiding us through at the same time. And testing. I mean, the testing, the plans that we've worked together for each week have been thorough and logical, and that's the biggest thing of not wasting money, is that we have data to back up what's working, and trying to double down in those areas.
Yeah, I think I would add to that as well as like an order of priority for me. Just because we've tested TV a couple of times, a few times here, it really came down to one, finding a partner that you can trust. And we vetted many agencies and vendors and dissected pretty much their pitch. And Skylar can tell you that. But essentially, it really comes down to one, picking that partner, then two is understanding your measurement approach, locking that down at the beginning, and hopefully not trying to change that later on because it could cause trouble and it could become a waste. And I would say the last one is just aligning on your KPI. If you're running a pilot and you are set on one KPI, then that should be your KPI, and not the others, understanding that there's a holistic benefit to running TV in general. That then once you reach that KPI, you can then look back at your more bottom of the funnel metrics, et cetera, if that's how you want to approach it. If you want to approach it from a bottom of the funnel initially, then understand the risks in doing so. And I would say those are the three things that you should definitely consider.
And when you were sort of vetting partners to work with, was there a sort of decision factor that was really important to you of like, well, this is kind of what I'm really looking for when I work with someone?
So yes, two things. Number one is my data team needs to approve of them and their data practices. We have had meetings with many of these agencies, PhD data scientists, pretty much everyone on their data team is intense. And ensuring that we are aligned, we sign NDAs for the purpose of that, like, even for betting that we sign NDAs because we're going to be digging into your whole approach before choosing you. And if you feel like we're worth that effort, then it shouldn't be that much to sign an NDA and kind of walk through this. And then I would say the other thing is just the efficiency in communication. In the world of TV and the way that you buy media is very important to really have that clear line of communication where you need to be talking to your media buyer daily, if not pretty much every other hour of the day. Like our media buyer at Tatari, Alex, who is phenomenal, will tell you I talk to him from the moment I wake up to try to understand how the day is going to pace out to how the rest of the week is going to look like. And it's hard to bet that out out of an agency or a company, but you can kind of get a glimpse of that as to how they reply to your question throughout the betting process of the interview. Are they diligent enough in getting back to you quickly on your answers? Are they diligent enough in connecting you with the right people at their company when you're trying to bet a specific part of their pitch, et cetera? So that is kind of like what I look for.
Cool. That makes a lot of sense.
I can give one more answer to this question too, if we have time. Just one other thing we've learned along the way here on attempting to not waste money, but unfortunately it requires testing to figure out if you're wasting money or not, is the balance of really efficient smaller networks versus bigger bets. So for us, that could be really, buying a much more expensive spot in sports programming or, a very popular other program, and some work for us, some haven't. And the faster we can learn what doesn't work, then that'll help us not waste money, as we move forward.
That's a great answer. This is a pretty good question. I like this. If you want to, I guess what perceptions of TV did you have before that are different now after launching successful campaigns?
I can jump in. I thought you had to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to launch a successful TV campaign, and I found that you don't. I also thought that long ago, I worked in marketing at Hotwire, which is a travel site, and it was pretty labor intensive to do that bottoms up measurement approach. And what I've learned since then is there are tools, and companies like Tatari are out there finding ways of making that analytics portion turnkey. So I appreciate Junior validating it with data science. I've done that once actually with Tatari before, in a previous run with them. And what I'm finding pretty consistently is that you can rely on their version of the analytics portion without having to build it in-house. And yeah, that's something I learned about TV.
I think I would agree with that on the budget piece, just because we've gone haywire in the past thinking that, okay, we should dive into TV, spending millions of dollars a month, and that didn't work. Then we said, okay, well, let's try it again, and instead let's bring down the budget, but finding a partner that could be very analytical. And in that case, I think it was a bit of the thing that kind of didn't work there was the alignment on KPI and measurement. The vendor and ourselves, we were not in any sort of alignment there. And I think that when it comes to TV, my perception was that you really needed to invest in this high reach, popular networks and whatnot. And what I've come to find out is that you really don't. I'd rather have 50 or 90 little networks that are hitting my KPI than have one or two big reach networks that are performing subpar. And that's one thing that I learned with Tatari, right? In previous campaigns, I would say that when we were testing millions of dollars a month for a quarter, we probably tested in the whole period of time, maybe 13, 14 networks. The second run we tested was about 19 networks. We have about 2 weeks left in our pilot with Tatari right now, and we have tested almost 100 networks at a fraction of the spend level that we've tested in our first run and almost at the same spend level that we tested in our second run. So that is something that I was not expecting, and I'm extremely happy with. So.
It's much of the same, just the ability to target the right audiences through testing and optimization. I think just the level of ability to do that is beyond what I thought going into it. Just much like Junior just said, I mean, there are a lot of networks that I just wouldn't have considered without Tatari's help. And it's like, these are great wins and pockets of success for us. That are more valuable to us than trying to overspend on some larger placement potentially.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you to all the panelists. Thank you to the Bring Ruckus team for putting this on and collaborating. Thank you to everyone joining as well. I appreciate you guys all taking the time out of the day. If there's any questions that you guys have that didn't get answered, please send me an email directly to skylar@tatari.tv. I'm very quick to respond. But again, thank you guys. Have a great rest of the week. And I appreciate you guys all joining.
Great. Skylar@tatari.tv?
Yep, that's right. SKYLER@tatari.tv.
Perfect. I just put it in the chat for anyone who wants to reach out to him or me for anything.
Awesome. Anish, thank you again.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
See you guys. Bye-bye.
See ya.